What villain was terrifying because they were right? Ken from the Bee Movie. I too would go absolutely berserk if a talking bee stole my girlfriend and gaslit me into thinking I was crazy. Colonel Kurtz. We train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write fuck on their airplanes because it's obscene. Not a true villain but Squidward. Damn, is SpongeBob an annoying neighbor, I'd hate him too. Squidward's a minimum wage worker in a monotonous day job with a boss who explicitly wants him to earn as little as possible and cuts costs everywhere, while having a musician's heart and playing his passion instrument to have some happiness and relaxing time for himself. He then proceeds to have his only time of peace and tranquility stolen from him by a loud, inconvenient neighbor who doesn't take care of his shit and makes fun of him for not being a pro at music. Most SpongeBob episodes I watch nowadays have me rooting for Squidward to just murder those two morons before they induce a depression breakdown on our Squid Boy. Ultron browsed the internet for 30 seconds and decided humanity had to go. Count Dooku just straight up told Obi-Wan that the Sith control the Senate. If you want to go even further, in the Clone Wars, the replicants from Blade Runner used as slaves and given artificially short lives. They just wanted to live and be free. The bears from Goldilocks and the Tree Bears. Otto from WALL-E. It was one of the only almost perfectly executed, villains. He never really talks unless needed because he wasn't programmed to, no malicious motives, does everything efficiently. He's only bad because he's following his programming, protect the humans and don't let them back to Earth. Not out of malicious intent, but it was what he was programmed to do. And his directive isn't even incorrect. WALL-E finding that plant was like finding a 4-leaf clover in a field of grain. The planet was nowhere near habitable, and they barely know how to stand when they get back. In reality, you know, nobody on that axiom is going to make it very far. Edit. Some of you missed the main point of the original post and started arguments on how humans could survive. Remember, me thinking they wouldn't make it far alone is only any theory, and I'm not saying it's 100% truth, but I'm kinda tired and I keep getting people saying the same thing, so I thought I would just say that so I could go to sleep and hopefully have a couple less people ticked off when I wake up than I would had I not said that. Edit 2. Well, I woke up and this comment blew up a bit. Just want to say that contrary to popular belief, I did watch the end credits. It's a Pixar movie. Did you expect them to actually show civilization fail and die? I just had a theory on what would happen if they went with a more grim approach. They could still live, but they also had a chance they wouldn't. Without the couple minutes end credits thrown in at the last second, it's really just an open-ended question I added one of many answers to. GLaDOS, she was absolutely right. You are a terrible person. General Hummel from The Rock. Magneto. He knew the hate humans had for mutants, and wasn't as blindly optimistic as Xavier. True Malcolm X of the mutant rights movement. The Hamburglar was just trying to save children from childhood obesity. Bobby Heenan. Spent the 80s telling us how awful and selfish Hulk Hogan was. Was proven absolutely correct in 1996. In hindsight, Heenan was trying to save us all from the inevitable scourge of Hollywood, Hogan. Arya's parents on Pretty Little Liars. They're villainized for not letting their high school daughter date her teacher? See also. Magneto, the Holocaust survivor, not wanting his species genocided. Ozymandias. He outsmarted the most powerful being in the universe and won. There actually weren't flaws in his logic or execution. I'll never forget reading Watchmen back in the 90s when I was in college and getting to the part where he explains his plan and Night Owl and Rorschach are all not if we stop you first. And he just looks at them like they're idiots, because they are, and he basically says, dude, I'm not some dumbass comic book villain telling you my master plan and giving you a chance to stop me for no reason. I already did all that shit like an hour ago and you're fucked. That was just brilliant. Do that, Rorschach? I'm not a comic book villain. Do you seriously think I would explain my masterstroke to you if there were even the slightest possibility you could affect the outcome? I triggered it 35 minutes ago. Let me talk and talk, revealing my plan. Classic bad guy mistake until he tells you he triggered it 35 minutes ago and was talking to waste time. None of you said the most terrifying one. Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. He wanted to bring free energy and advanced technology to the people. And in one episode he actually did. He made the world an amazing place. And then the Powerpuff Girls ruined it all. I just read his backstory, pretty sad. The professor accidentally created him by spilling chemical X on him. He was a lab assistant at the time. But then after the Powerpuff Girls were created, the professor eventually neglected Mojo and left him to live out on the streets. Stevie from Wizards of Waverly Place. Her entire goal was to stop families from giving up their magic to just one person in the family. Like, we're really supposed to be rooting against her? It just seems super out of character for Alex to go against that plan. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes. I got to experience seeing something I put on Reddit appear on my FYP on TikTok for the first time. Magneto is my favorite villain of all time. Every time his motives are brought to light I get that yeah, I kinda get it moment. Roy Batty. What was done to him and his kind was wrong and he had righteous anger. Frankenstein's monster. Adam. Created by a short-sighted, arrogant doctor as the first of his race, then denied the opportunity to be part of a community, of his own, man-made beings, or the human community. He only became monstrous after it became clear that Frankenstein would never create another of his kind, and was driven mad by his desire to punish Frankenstein's hubris. The guy in Korra who wanted to end special privileges for benders. Perfectly captured that right idea, fascist execution, concept and dread. Dracula in Castlevania, the series. What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. Spot on. Quote should have made it into the show. Maul. His last words before being captured by the Republic was, "You're all going to burn. You're all going to die. You don't know what you're doing." He tried to warn Ahsoka of Palpatine's ultimate plan, but she didn't listen. Not really sure if you can consider him a villain. But Peacemaker when he went on a rant about Batman causing countless deaths because he refuses to kill supervillains. Screenslaver from The Incredibles 2. The monologue given during that movie regularly rings in my head. I'm sure the creepy bass robotic voice doesn't help too. The screenslaver interrupts this program for an important announcement. Don't bother watching the rest. Elastigirl doesn't save the day, she only postpones her defeat. And while she postpones her defeat, you eat chips and watch her invert problems that you are too lazy to deal with. Superheroes are part of a brainless desire to replace true experience with simulation. You don't talk, you watch talk shows. You don't play games, you watch game shows. Travel, relationships, risk. Every meaningful experience must be packaged and delivered to you to watch at a distance so that you can remain ever sheltered, ever passive, ever ravenous consumers who can't free themselves to rise from their couches to break a sweat, never anticipate new life. You want superheroes to protect you, and make yourselves ever more powerless in the process. Well, you tell yourselves you're being looked after. That you're inches from being served and your rights are being upheld. So that the system can keep stealing from you, smiling at you all the while. Go ahead. Send your supers to stop me. Grab your snacks, watch your screens, and see what happens. You are no longer in control. I am. TLDR. You think everything will always be okay, and while you remain distracted, the powers that be will continue to steal from you. Edit. I'm absolutely loving reading through these replies and how varying our understanding of the monologue can be. It definitely was intended to reach all audiences to say, hey, whatever evil you've perceived as the problem and whatever super you perceived as the solution doesn't matter as long as you remain complacent. Just love it. Lex Luthor. We're only safe as long as Superman think it's fun to be the hero. King Kong. Not even because he was right. He was just alive. Minding his own business and blam. Taken out of his home and made to be the villain without any choice. A real good example of human nature. Edit a word. The Matrix's Agent Smith. I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with their surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to another area, and you multiply, until every natural resource is consumed. The only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. Syndrome, when everyone's super, nobody is. You would expect a Pixar movie to have a message like, everyone is born special, but The Incredibles' message is more like, some people are born more special than others, and it's not okay to tear them down out of jealousy. Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze. Terminator 2, it's in your nature to destroy yourselves. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually, they will hate you. Dude was right about how the perception of public figures changes over time. I wasn't really terrified of it, but N was right in my opinion when we're talking Pokémon. Dude thought getting these creatures and making them fight till one is knocked out wasn't that amazing of an idea, and it just made sense to kid me. That all said, I think N is a really interesting character that can be interpreted in many different ways. Of all the main leaders of these games, I think N had the best argument. It wasn't perfect though. I like N a lot for his character development. I agree with him at the end. Real Pokémon mistreatment should not be tolerated. But a Pokémon trainer simply using Pokémon in battles does not qualify as mistreatment, as the Pokémon is happy. The Pokémon like the trainers, that is the best you should wish for there. All in all, I wish Pokémon had good stories and characters like this again. TBH. Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace. The live-action movie has one of those random scenes you see as a kid that sticks with you your whole life. Mr. Wilson has been cultivating this flower that takes like 40 years to bloom and then dies in 10 seconds. At the moment it's going to bloom, Dennis causes a ruckus and Mr. Wilson misses the blooming he's been working his whole adult life for. Looking back, that's like one of the most disturbing moments I've seen on film, partly because it gets more relatable as I get older. I mean, damn, 40 years. As soon as you mentioned the live-action version, that's the scene that came to mind. I think it was so memorable because all the other shenanigans that happened, he yelled at Dennis, but this time he didn't. I had to re-watch the scene for the quote, but, "You took something from me that I can never get back. Something that means more to me than you ever will. I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you. Get out of my way." That's real. Those are the words of a heartbroken man. I root for Magneto when watching the X-Men movies. He's objectively right, and Days of Future Past proves it. Poison Ivy is an environmentalist at heart and Raj Al Ghul is a humanitarian. Both were pushed into extremism after the broken system they're trying to fix simply refused to change for so long that they decided the system itself needed to be torn down. Where is Q from Star Trek? He introduced the Borg just to prove a point. Q isn't even villainous, just the sci-fi equivalent of Phi. He introduced the Borg just to prove a point. I disagree. By introducing humanity to the Borg and vice versa far ahead of when they would have encountered each other naturally, it gave the Federation time to prepare. It also challenged the preconception Picard had that all people could simply be reasoned with, when it was clear that the Borg could not. For all that it mattered, save for a literal deus ex machina, Mass Effect's Sovereign was right. You exist because we allow it, and you will end because we demand it. There was no stopping the Reapers. None. Not one iota of legitimate hope. Sovereign laid it out like it was the facts it was, without ego, pride, or delusion. And you knew he was right, too. The Mom and Mrs. Doubtfire. Something you don't understand as a kid watching it but totally get as a parent. Shit, if I was married and came home to literal zoo animals in my house, I'd go find James Bond and a nanny instead. Once you think the mom from Mrs. Doubtfire and Ariel's dad are actually the rational ones in the movie, you officially become an adult. The Boss MGS3. I raised you. I loved you. I've given you weapons, taught you techniques, endowed you with knowledge. There is nothing more for me to give you. All that's left for you to take is my life, by your own hand. One must die and one must live. No victory, no defeat. The survivor will carry on the fight. It is our destiny. The one who survives will inherit the title of boss. And the one who inherits the title of boss will face an existence of endless battle. Maleficent. The king was a piece of shit and deserved everything she did to him. The Reapers from Mass Effect, in the original BioWare ending before EA changed it. All they were trying to do was stop advanced races from using so much dark matter that they wiped out all life in the galaxy before other races were allowed to come along. If it wasn't for them, humanity wouldn't just not exist, but every species in the entire cycle. Every species in every cycle. Everyone would have died as the stars went out. This horrific fast heat death event, over the course of a few thousand years. Except a small group of Leviathans, in the early days of the universe, realized what was going to happen, and sacrificed their entire civilization to save all future life in the galaxy. And when Shepard destroys their ships in the third one, every one of those ships is a museum, a living record of every previous civilization, and they're destroying the only thing that was able to be left from them. To fight the Reapers is to fight against everyone who has ever lived and everyone who ever will live. The Reapers don't just have a point, they've saved more lives than we can even fathom. Their only flaw is that they were never able to find a solution. That was better than wiping out civilization every few thousand years and preserving whatever they could find. Red Queen Resident Evil. I have locked down this facility to prevent a world-ending virus. Please could you, good guys, pay attention and not blow holes in the doors.